This week's episode is a raw solocast with yours truly, and I share all the strange, mystical, spiritual happenings that have happened for me since my plant medicine dieta back in June. So, to walk you up to this point, it really all began in my second ever ayahuasca ceremony. Blasted off out of the many things I saw was a past life where I had this really strong purpose that I didn't fulfill. And it's all of a sudden become really relevant again. Flash forward from there, I did a golden ceremony for a friend and an esoteric protocol where she had a prophecy. She's an open channel. She had a prophecy for me that honestly freaked me out. And it launched me into this journey of realizing how afraid I am of my true power. And then from that point, I do my dieta, I come home, I feel terrible. So I get into this devotional practice to the goddess Lakshmi. She's the Hindu goddess of abundance. And the things that have come from that have been so unexpected, so magical and wild. I give you details into the other deities who have come in, the other golden ceremonies that I myself have been guided through, and so much more. So for my fellow peeps who love a good story in the astral world, the spiritual world, you're really going to enjoy this one. And if you're new to the show, there is some context that I do my best to fill you in, but if you want to check out the related episodes, you can check that out in the show notes. If you would like to work with me and learn about my offerings, you can find that all in the show notes at schoolofwhispers.com. All right, let's dive on in. You are listening to the School of Whispers podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie, and this is my space to get real, open, and weird about my life experiences as a psychic, medium, energy healer, and student of Chinese medicine. On the show, I'll be sharing my healing journey and the concepts I've learned along the way, and I'll be having guests on talking about the same sort of thing. I am so happy you're here, and I hope this show leaves you feeling inspired and empowered to learn how to listen to the whispers of your own body and spirit. Let's get into the show. Hello, you guys. Oh my God, I think I just recorded a whole entire podcast and I'm not going to use it. This is the third podcast that I've tried to record. My goodness. Because, well, to start, welcome to my beloved return listeners, to the new listener. I am going to do my best to keep you in the loop with all the things I'm going to be discussing here, but there's probably a lot of context that you need. And God, I got 50 minutes in and I finally got to the point of the thing that I actually wanted to discuss with you guys. And I realized, no, this is way too long to get to the point. Oh. All right, I'm going to ground myself. I invite you to ground with me, but, do what you want to do. Of course, you know the drill. Don't close your eyes if you're driving. If you aren't driving, though, let's close our eyes down and take a moment. With a big inhale in through the nose. Big exhale out through the mouth. Let's do a big inhale and a sigh. And then this next one, we're going to inhale, then purse our lips and blow the air out slowly. So big, long inhale. Hold, and then when you do release, make that exhale twice as long as your inhale. Opening our hearts, feeling our shoulders relax, opening up our ears, listening to what needs to be heard, what needs to be revealed, what needs to be observed, and doing just that, observing with an open mind, a continued open heart, and asking for clarity and for truth to be with us here. Okay. Can't believe I did that. Okay, let's see if I can clearly and coherently explain to you what the fuck has been going on with me since dieta. I haven't done a true actual solo cast since doing it because what I'm going through is deep, and I've felt hesitant and to share for whatever reason, but I know that there's value in sharing. And actually, right before recording, I did do a hape ceremony, and I asked for help with this resistance, and the answer I received, I got the elephant as a guide, and the elephant told me to remember why you do this, why you share, why you're here. And I felt a little bit of this imposter syndrome every time I hear this word prophet come in. And maybe it's my Catholic background and my association with this high and mighty word prophet. But I was told in my second ever ayahuasca ceremony that, and I've done 6 total. So my second ever in 2022, I had this whole message of me being a prophet. And what prophets do is they listen and then they relay the message. Prophets aren't, these bedazzled queens and kings with all these accolades and stuff. They're humble. I don't have to feel imposter syndrome for being a humble person who listens and who shares. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm coming from that lens of my listening since dieta and what needs to be shared here. So I'm going to keep it with the strange and the interesting and fun spiritual happenings that have happened since dieta. So when I came back from my dieta, life was hard. It was really hard to return to the world that I had left behind with this new lens and this desire to embody all the lessons that I've learned on love and allowing, and especially beauty. Beauty has been the big one here. Before I walk us through the not so distant past, I want to take you a little bit further back to earlier this year when I did a golden ceremony. So golden ceremony is a combination of, it's a ceremony that I've created with using non-psychedelic Amazonian herbs, chanting, drumming, energy work, as well as esoteric acupuncture, a specific protocol called the golden needle that gets you into a trance state where you can go deep into your inner world, other dimensions, past lives, you name it. Really, truly, the possibilities are endless. And Vanita, my girl, who she showed me how far golden needle can go. And so she has this beautiful gift of channeling. So channeling is when, like a deity, like you align with that, or not a deity, it could be source, it could be anything, but the consciousness of Kali and Vanita are like ham and cheese sandwich, just a beautiful, original, classic combination that will always exist in my life. And so, yes, when she gets into that resonance, it's like, I'll link her podcast in the show notes, and you can hear when she's channeling, because she's just completely flowing. But there's this other side of channeling that Vanita has this gift in, and it's manifestation. So her crown is very open, and her ability to almost like take a step back so that a consciousness can step through. It's very strong. And it's something that she's had to learn how to hone in. But the way that I could compare it to, well, when she first started doing it is when, and she tells the whole story in this podcast, but to save you some time, she was at a temple that was a temple devoted to Mother Kali, and through jumping, it activated her kundalini, opened up her crown, and then the goddess was able to step through to her. And everybody has their own form of manifesting. It can be through dance, speaking. Like for her, it's like eyes closed, body rolling. She starts speaking with this new voice, this different accent. And so within her golden needle, she eventually starts speaking to me and says, Stephanie, you are one of my sisters. And something that happens to her before she starts channeling, she gets giggly, and I started getting giggly. And I think I've talked about this in one of the podcasts of season 2. Yes, the divine mother and father energies. But yeah, I remember getting a little bit giggly and saying, I know I am. And me thinking, I know, I know that I'm sisters with someone who's not my biological sister, but also to someone who's speaking through my friend. How do I know this? But that was the first thing that wanted to come out of me. And she said to me that my Shakti would be activating this year. Well, first she said, I don't know the word for it. I don't know the English word for it. And again, this was Kali speaking through Vanita. She said, I don't know the English word for it. It's your energy from your center. And Vanita's brother was like, is it her Shakti? And she goes, yes, her Shakti. So when I heard that, it kind of brought me into this whole journey of realizing how afraid I am of myself and my true power. I also realized during that time, shortly after, and I do share this on the pod, that a version of my higher self. So I like to put my highest self into 2 forms here. The first form is Vishada, and Vishada is this warrior, and the leopard tattoo that I have on my right side, it represents her. And then I have this other side of my highest self, and she's angelic. I call her Seraphina, and she is all light. And Vishada works more with darkness, and it's almost like Seraphina's the one that just blasts that beam of light into whatever needs to be blasted. And as I'm saying this, I'm realizing I feel myself becoming conscious of what I'm sharing, how strange it may sound to all of you. Recently, it came to light to me that some people believe that the things like Vanita and I, we go deep into all this work. It is what we're here for. And I guess some people find it demonic. They've used that word. And yeah, it does sting a little hearing that, but also it makes me want to laugh, and it feels a little bit silly because of that Christian worldview of what is demonic and what is not. But that's a whole other tangent I can get into. But, I like to remain as transparent as possible on this podcast about my insecurities because why not? Everyone is out there trying to be that confidence queen. And I mean, I'm confident on a lot of things, but the things that are new to me, I have a level of vulnerability. And I feel that my ability to express my darkness and move through that expression, moving my way towards my own light, is like a superpower of mine. So I'm going to keep rolling with it, take it or leave it. Everything I say from this point, it's yours to listen to objectively with an open heart, or yours to say, I don't really want to ascribe to this story, this experience, and that's completely your choice. Onwards. So from that point, I learned it was actually Vanita's brother who brought it to my attention that Vishada is another name for Kali in I think the Himalayas or something. And certain symbols that represent her were symbols that I had gotten in a vision that day that we did the golden needle for Vanita. And, there's a lot to it. Long story short, I became afraid of that side of me. I saw the manifestation as absolutely magical and really intense. And I had felt a little tingling of what that felt like in my body. And it reminded me of that first time I felt myself let go in a plant medicine ceremony in my second. I'm going to be referring a lot to my second ayahuasca experience here because, I actually feel like that's really where this story, this personal legend within came to my attention. Within that ceremony, I was required to let go per request of a bunch of aliens around me. So, that freaked me out. That was a battle of being like, I think I'm supposed to do this. And then also, these are not human beings. My life is so good. Why would I leave my body to go with aliens to learn about that? What? No. And after a long battle, I said yes. And out of the many things I was shown this past life of being a woman from this ancient desert village society. And she was a prophet. I was a prophet in that past life. And over time, I've learned more about her. It's interesting. I was trying to connect with her more after when I returned home from those first two ayahuasca ceremonies. But I couldn't really until I felt the call to shave one side of my head. And I think it was that day or the next day after I shaved it, I did, when I want to go deep into my inner world, I take a bath. And it was through like my bath time that I received the full picture of this past life. And I feel comfortable sharing this. So in this past life, I was a prostitute and I fell in love with a man. And it's interesting, I saw who that man was in this lifetime. But yeah, I fell in love with a man who made all these promises for me. And, I think it was more that she fell in love with him because he gave her this promise of escape from this lifetime of sexual slavery. He was a merchant, he was wealthy and all these things. And so I was getting ready for escape day, whatever it was, and he never showed up. And I learned pretty quickly that he had a whole family and he wasn't going to leave. He wasn't going to do any of the things that he said he would do. I was devastated and my reaction was rage, absolute pure rage. So it was like a Jewish, I was Jewish. I was a Jewish woman, but I was a slave. I was raised Jewish and then became a sex slave. And women in ancient Jewish culture if they were to be publicly shamed, if they were married women who slept with a man, or, even probably a woman who slept with a man that wasn't her husband, they would shave her head to cast shame on her. And so what I did, I shaved my head as an act of defiance, as an act of saying, fuck you to this society of, yeah, I am a prostitute. I am this undesirable, low-class human who has never been protected, never been truly cared for, never felt safe. And I've still followed the rules because, I didn't have the choice of being a slave here. but I was still obedient. I still did everything I was told, and I never, ever, got what I needed from this lifetime, from this society. So fuck all y'all. I'm going to shave my head, and I'm going to take this as not as a shame, but as stepping into my own power, as a sign of separation from the bullshit rules and stories. And I went out into the desert, and I was pretty cool with dying. I was just completely surrendered of like, whatever happens, happens. I'm off to the desert. See ya. And in the desert, I just would fast on food and, from food and water. And I just sat there, and then everything came to me. Sustenance came to me. Protection came to me. The desert provided for me. And I started connecting with my guides, my highest self, God, source. And I started learning so much about myself and about life. Ooh, getting emotional talking about this. And she would go back to the village and share with her girls, her people, what she learned. And she was just untouchable. She was so protected, and everybody wanted to feel what she clearly was feeling and living like this. And they wanted to learn from the gods of the desert, whatever they called it. And they would follow her eventually into her trips into the desert. And for whatever reason, she thought they would be provided for too, but for whatever reason, she was the only, people were dying around her, and she eventually would tell people, stop coming with me, don't come with me, this isn't safe, why are you doing this? But people would come and they would die anyways. And some people would live and were able to fend for themselves, and it created this whole little like mini society, but she wanted nothing to do with it, and she felt really guilty and ashamed. And so I learned that I am meant to, I guess, fulfill that full title of release, or that full title of prophet. Oof, the inner cringe I get in saying that. Own it, Steph, own it. To fulfill in this lifetime that role, position, that soul's purpose of being a prophet, and also to release guilt and shame. Because at the end of the day, everyone has their own decisions, and it's not up to me to protect everyone. All right, so keeping all of this context in your brain, we're going to flash forward to dieta. In dieta, I faced a lot of my fear, and I realized that I had a lot of fear in me in general, and I was divvying out the roles and the stories that fear would tell. And one of it was being afraid of learning more about myself. Because in case you haven't realized, my story is a bit on the strange side, I'd say, without trying to put too much judgment on me. It's just not very normal, mainstream, maybe. I don't know. The things that I've been required to accept and I've experienced in my life on plant medicine, but also sober, it's felt very like out of this world, hard to have complete faith and trust in. And a huge part of that is like who I meant to become as, I don't know, this soul. In my fourth ever Aya ceremony, second ceremony at that dieta, I had that Shakti moment. I just knew in that moment, like, oh man, my Kundalini is activating. And it wasn't fully completed. I had to complete it the next night because I had a lot of purging to do, a lot of resistance to let go of. But it felt like that full little energy all popping all the way up my body and out was a completion of the, I guess, premonition that Vanita had given me when she was manifesting. Little did I know that it was more of the beginning of it. All right. So to jump ahead now to about maybe a month post dieta. During that month, that first month out of it, it was really tough adjusting, and my social tank just always felt like it needed to be taken out. I needed a lot of alone time, wasn't getting a lot of alone time, wasn't really able to get into my spiritual practices. But I did hear there's two things that I heard on the Deja Blue podcast. I think it was like episode 3 or something on abundance. Highly recommend you listen to that episode. She just spoke to me in it, and she recommended two things. Well, no, she said two things that she did that helped on her abundance journey, because I don't know if I mentioned this in this podcast or the one I recorded before, but my relationship with money and abundance and all of that has just been very strained. It's a part of why I'm here, I feel, to constantly reconnect to my worth without these things, and my sense of safety within my business and money, asking for more money, asking my worth, setting up things within my business for me to feel taken care of and safe. That really came out during that time, or maybe it was I had the space for it. So I started listening to this book called Busting Loose of the Money Game. And to give you the quickest synopsis I could possibly give you, is I thought it was on business and budgeting and finances and shit like that. And it was more about awakening and realizing that we are gods and masters within this matrix that we have created here, and busting loose from the money story with that perspective. So that's been huge for me. And Blue mentioned that she was doing a devotional practice. She had done a devotional practice to Lakshmi. So I go to school and I see Vanita, and during this time it was on summer break, so we were just both in clinic that day, and I asked her, what does it mean to have a devotional practice to a goddess? And because Lakshmi is a Hindu deity, she's the deity of beauty. She's the most beautiful deity of them all, and she represents abundance. And Vanita told me that you can offer them little gifts. They love sweet things, rich things. You can also do chanting, things like that. So that's what I decided to do in order to dive deeper into this abundance wounding negative core belief. I wanted to ask for help, but also go at it from a roundabout sort of mindset rather than trudging straight ahead and diving into my money story and my wounds. I decided to learn how to be within an abundant consciousness. And so I did for several days, for a couple of weeks, maybe like 2 or 3 weeks, every day I did chanting for Lakshmi. And the chant, I think it translates to, I invoke the successful power of the sun and the magnetic power of the moon. And Lakshmi, within all your beauty and infinite abundance, I salute you. And I try to do that 28 times because 28 is the number of abundance in numerology. I was also born on August 28th, so 828. And then 28 is the age I just turned 3 days ago. And so it's all, none of it's for no reason. It's all just fated. It's all already happened, you know? It's all been set up for me. And doing these chants were really great. I felt so just in a state of trance within them. And the things that came up from doing that not talking about spiritual, talking about it from like an actual manifestation point of view, I have received so many more clients. I feel and my husband got this insane, unexpected bonus from work. So financially, I feel abundant. And the thing is, though, a sense of abundance isn't entirely related to what's in your bank account. A sense of abundance is what you allow yourself within your reality to feel. You could feel a penny's amount, and you could feel an infinite 100 million quadrillion dollars amount of abundance, and it would have nothing to do with the actual number. And my whole life, I've been so financially abundant and taken care of, and I haven't allowed myself to feel it. I guess how I want to rephrase it, rather than like, after getting all this money, I felt abundant. I just kind of realized, wow, I'm really provided for. I'm really safe. And actually, I don't have to work so hard to call in my ideal client who sees my worth, because they're already here with me. I'm surrounded by people who see my worth. They're already here. The work has been done. Saying that out loud, man, it does something for me, because I'm still very much in this portal here. And then, so that happened. And also, it's funny, I'm getting rid of so much stuff, clothes, things in my drawers, and it's all coming back. It's almost a little too much. It's like the boomerang of abundance and things is coming back without me having to spend a penny, like going to clothing swaps, people saying like, hey, I don't really want this thing. Do you want this thing? Or, oh my God, recently I went to this conference for doctors in Chinese medicine, massage therapists, chiropractors, and I was a volunteer there, and I got hundreds of dollars worth of needles and herbs there, all for free, whether it was samples or I was just in the right place at the right time. And people were leaving, packing up their stuff and going like, hey, you're a student, aren't you? Do you want a bunch of boxes of needles and a bunch of herbal tinctures and formulas? And I'm like, sure. Things like that. And I need to like take it easy on the things, because I really want I want to see less things around me lately. But that, and then this is crazy what came out of the woodwork here. Long making, again, I'm saying this more for my benefit, to remind myself that the story is long, but I'm capable of keeping it short for you guys, to tell you guys the point here. But I had a little bit of a falling out with my therapist. I had to set a boundary with her after a session that I didn't feel that great about. I did communicate something with her, and I was really scared to do it. And I ended up doing it, and she ended up apologizing and it felt so good to be able to not be attacked for asking for what I need, because that's kind of been the story in my head for a long time. Anyways, within that time where I wasn't communicating with her, I was just kind of brewing with this feeling, trying to figure out what I needed to do here. Somebody else came out of the woodwork, and she was a part of my master's program, but she had dropped out and went in a different direction and became a board certified health coach. Well, she's in the middle of getting her hours to do that. And so she texted me asking if I wanted to be a part of it. And I said yes, not really expecting much, thinking health coach, I'm pretty healthy. I know what I'm doing with my health these days, especially coming out of dieta. I felt from releasing so much fear, I had realized that all the stories I had told myself around health and diet and exercise, none of it mattered as long as I had felt unsafe and as long as I had avoided facing that fear and sense of unsafety. So yeah, I wanted to support her, and I was also curious. And oh my God, this has been one of the most transformational journeys for me. So to help her get her hours means that I don't have to pay a cent for any of this. And she is good, you guys. I'm having coaching sessions, and we've decided to focus on my money wounds and the things that I hold myself back in my business. I've had so many breakthroughs. I've been able to put into action so many lessons within this small month-long container. And then recently she was like, Steph, we're so close. We're so close to cracking the code. And she's realized the code is as much as I'm learning about how to find my footing within money, abundance, business, I'm also learning how to stick up for myself, how to speak for myself. And it's a lot of I'm realizing throat chakra sort of themed things here. It's been fucking awesome. And so she wants to go deeper into that over the next few weeks. And again, not paying a cent. So if you're hearing this and you believe that you have to do like I've believed for almost my whole life, actually that was my intention for this year, was to be. That was my word for the year. Be. I have spent so much of my life trying to get what I want by doing things. And I really felt like I wanted to learn how to be. Receive by being. That's what my guides were calling me to do. Just be, and let us bring you the gifts that you have inside of you that want to come out. It reminds me actually of how Dr. Joe Dispenza, who does a lot of research on consciousness and science of spirituality and manifestation, he talks about how he argues that you could, on a quantum level, you can see us, the energetic amalgamations of source, of God, within the field as staying completely still. And everything we want or think about is coming to us. And guys, this is it. It's for real. It's not an urban legend here. Okay, so just to give you that little piece, but to talk about what Lakshmi has given me on a spiritual level. All right, so Mana's dad was visiting for a month. He was a wonderful house guest. He really was. I just needed to be alone. And so when Mana and his dad went down south to West Palm Beach for his dad to see, because we're moving down there, and Mana wants his dad he's from New Zealand, and he wants him to know what the life that we're going to be stepping into here. I needed to stay home because my family's down there and all my friends, I grew up there. So I knew that I wasn't going to be able to get away with being alone out there. I never am. And I was desperate to be alone and to have a ceremony. And so that Friday, they left Friday morning, afternoonish. Friday night, I had the most delicious hape and cannabis ceremony where I called in truth. I'm going to shed a lot of details. I actually recorded a whole podcast after that ceremony, but it was just way too personal on a lot of things. But within that ceremony, I call in the energy of truth. And I feel it, the only way I can describe it is when you're petting the smoothest surface that you've ever touched, the smoothest kitty, softest little furry creature, but it also feels like water, and it looks, everything about the senses around it, the word I could give it is crystal clear. This smooth, beautiful, pure wavelength activated within my heart when I called in truth, and I felt it rise up to my throat, and I had this vision of me speaking and it feeling so clear and effortless, speaking my truth, because I've realized a lot in my life asking for what I want, speaking what I really, really think and believe has felt so threatening and scary for me. And every day that I don't speak from this truth well within me, it kills me a little inside. It constricts me. It's the opposite of love. It creates a sense of resistance versus allowing. So I had that vision and it felt so good. And I start like channeling my light language. And all of a sudden I hear myself saying, Durga, Durga, Durga. And Durga is another Hindu deity. And it made me think of Lakshmi. So I start thinking I step into my thinking mind. I fuck up right there. And I start doing my Lakshmi chants. But I think it was because of the medicines working within me. It was like somebody had scratched the surface of the CD or had taken the little wire off the record player and went, and then I stopped doing the Lakshmi prayer and I hear this voice come out of me that was like nothing I had heard before, nothing that I'd heard come out of me before. It felt like I was manifesting. I felt like I had taken a step back and this new being was here and she's like touching my skin and blowing kisses, and I feel a little bit freaked out. So I stop and I check in with my guides and I ask, like, we good here? Am I safe here? And I leaned in. I did all the little things I do to just make sure that I am here allowing the highest good to flow through me. And it all felt very positive. So I let her finish. She started singing, and I'm on a journey with my singing voice here. I think that I can have a really nice voice, and I also have a whatever voice. And the singing voice that came out of me was in that same resonance as that, like, this old woman, and it was so beautiful. I've tried to sing like this since then, just, in the car driving, whatever. It doesn't come out. It was so gorgeous. And then when she stopped, I just started crying and released so much. So it was a really powerful ceremony. And I was also like, what the fuck? And so I eventually get to talk to Vanita about it. I had also told her that out of my animal guides in this 3D realm here that have been visiting me, it's been crows and ravens. And she says, it's making me think of this deity. She goes, and now keep an open mind here. Her name is Dhumavati. She's depicted always with crows and ravens. Those are her messengers. And she is known as the widow. And she is known as, like, she represents poverty because, in Hindu culture, the man makes the money, the woman keeps the home. She is the man's chattel in a lot of ways. If her husband dies, then, she can fall right in. She doesn't have family around her to take care of her. She'll fall right into poverty. And she's also known as the ugliest of the Hindu goddesses. I started doing more research on her. So she is also known as a Lakshmi, which means opposite of Lakshmi. Everything that Lakshmi isn't is what Duma is. She also represents magic, manifestation. She loves serving the woman. She's not really into guys. She doesn't really love men, which makes me think, and in my research I've learned that she has almost like this antisocialness to her because society had cast her out for being the widow. And she's one of the only Hindu deities who isn't represented with her male counterpart because she has no male counterpart. She stands alone and she she serves women. I'm like, okay, am I the only person in the world who tries to call in, invoke the goddess of abundance and beauty, and she gets the exact opposite here. What did I do wrong? But I also kind of felt a little bit of this kindred spirit with her, just along the lines of wanting to be alone, tapping into my personal magic, and providing for the woman. All right, so all of that happens, and it feels true. The more I learn about Duma, the more I realize, all right, she's here. I get invited to a full moon party by my dear friend Louisa, and at the full moon party, I have social anxiety, which is so new to me. I love people and socializing. I really do. And then also I hate it. And so you know how it is being an introverted extrovert. You have days where your cup is full and overflowing and you want to just share it with everyone. And then you also have those times where you're like, I need to be in my cave and to not let a single soul interact with me in my cave. I guess it's probably the nature of being a woman in a lot of ways. Maybe a tapped in woman, because I know that when I'm alone is when I'm able to tap into my darkness and my power, but that's a whole other thing. And so I get that social anxiety at the party, and I see my friend Cheval sitting outside. And so I go outside on this little balcony, and there's these women there, and one of them says, "Hey, pull a card." I go, "Okay." So I ground myself down and I pull a card, and the card I get is the raven and the crow. And the raven and the crow represent magic, darkness, and manifestation, and like the unknown or something like that. So I get a chill down my spine. And then another woman goes, "Hey, play with my pendulum." Okay. And she has this little mat that says yes, no, maybe. And you hold the pendulum over the mat, and she had all these crystals on it. I was a little bit like, what? I had never really played with a pendulum before, other than like a Ouija board, which me no likey the Ouija boards. However, now that I'm mentioning the Ouija board now, maybe it's really the protection and the intention you put behind it, because that's what I did. I cleared out her crystals. I cleared out the pendulum. I set my space. I called in my people. I declared I was here for the highest intention, the highest good. There was no space, absolutely no space for anything but the highest good. And then I listened, and I asked, "Duma, are you here?" And I got a yes. And I asked, like, why? Why are you here? What do you want from me? And I think got the answer of ask again. So I asked, "Are you here to help?" And I got a yes. And I said, "Okay, I've been feeling pretty tight in my body, been feeling a lot of tension, and I would like some help releasing that tension. Will you help me?" Yes. So I sit there and I wait, and everybody goes outside to do the sparklers. And I was alone, and that in itself helped me relax in that moment too. And maybe that was a gift that I was given. But I'm waiting, and I thought I was going to feel my muscles just completely drop and relax, but it didn't really happen. So I go, "All right, thanks, Duma. See ya." And so I close the space. I go inside. Inside, I see my girl Cheval with another woman, and they're using a massage gun. I'm like, this is something. And I sit down and I ask if I could be next. Absolutely. Another girl walks in and asks to be a part of this massage gun party. And she says, "Oh, I'll do you next." And someone goes, yes, you want her to do it. She's a professional. And she works on me. And I go, "You actually feel like a professional?" She goes, "Yeah, no, I'm a body worker. This is what I do." And we spoke more. We realized we had both done similar trainings. And I asked her for a trade. And we do a trade. And really since then, all the opportunities that I've gotten to learn new ways to release my body, it's been so cool. And it's been ways that have come to me, but also things that I've gone out of my way to do. Yeah, that's a little nod from Duma there. After that point, to really kind of bring it home to you, I want to share about my own golden ceremony, golden needle experience. My professor, Dr. Adamson, my teacher, and my mentor in a lot of medical qigong and esoteric acupuncture, he came over and he helped guide me in a ceremony. And it was a really fun, interesting ceremony. Maybe what I'll do is I have it all written. I think I'm going to put it as a blog post on my website. But I want to get to the main point here is I eventually ended up in a room full of angels within this golden needle trance state. And in that room of angels, I saw like every depiction of angels that I've heard of across my life, like all the way down to seeing people's pets, they say, oh, it's my little angel, things like that. And two beings presented themselves to me, these two beautiful, masculine, bright angels, Christopher and Michael. And they're here to protect me. They said they're here to protect me as I get deeper into this channeling manifestation journey, because I'm very afraid of allowing a dark outer body being into my field. I'm afraid of, just not really knowing, because I've done that before. Not to the level of channeling or being possessed, but I've played around with energy before I knew what I was doing, and I got burned. That's all. I think I'm referring to that one time in 2019 where I felt like I was being haunted. But that's a whole other story here, and I want to stick with the trajectory that we're on right now. And so these angels said, like, hey, this truly is a part of your journey, and we are here to make sure that you are able to flow while feeling protected. And after I'm kind of integrating them in, I think, why not call in Duma? So I call in Duma within this state, and it's funny, it's because the angels are so bright and vivid, and she comes in like a smoke. And she explains to me that something that she's here to help me with is the grief that I have contracted to release for my ancestors. To explain that deeper is I've been getting messages within my meditations and ceremonies that I have this beautiful, beautiful life in front of me, and have been given the privilege, that, as they like to frame it, the privilege of finding the full expression, I guess, of tears and sadness and grief that my ancestors refused to share. And that resonated because in my life, I very often have felt, at first it was I wasn't allowed to cry. I had to be the strong, good girl, the space holder. And for me, crying equaled weakness. It's been a journey with my tears. and I had, within that golden ceremony, I had this past, it wasn't a past life, I guess. It was more of this vision of one of my ancestors not crying when he lost his wife, and not allowing his son to grieve and cry when the man, the husband, the father got really sick, and not allowing the boy to understand the depth of the illness that he was not letting him realize, oh my God, I'm going to lose my dad, and grieving together and all of that stuff. And it's just a lot of information that I've been given is that I will release their tears. And it's like that release is putting the doorknob in the door and is going to allow me to step into the next room. So with all of that being said, I'm going to jump back real quick. Since that second ayahuasca ceremony with that past life, and then shaving the side of my head and getting that download of that past life. I have been doing my best to connect with that past life, but I think that there's a block here. And the block is grief and shame and probably a little bit of frustration. You know, those classic dark emotions that we avoid, but that are the key in a lot of ways. It's like they're not the blocks. It's the avoidance of them. That's the block. And so I've been getting this really strong call to shave my head. And it was actually listening to Damn You Blue, that Deja Blue podcast. She talked about when she shaved her head and how she had done so much work to change, and who she was on the outside didn't really fully resonate and reflect with who she had become on the inside. And so to have that fresh start to propel that alchemization practice of change forward even more, she shaved her head. And I was like, oh God, there's that desire again. What is this? It's this desire paired with fear, of course. And Dumavati within that golden needle ceremony let me know is that desire is stronger than ever now, because it's like I'm calling in her energy because of that desire and because of the lessons that I've been learning about beauty. It's like she said, you think Lakshmi, the beautiful one who gets everything handed to her, you think she's the one who's going to teach you about abundance and beauty? No, I'm here to teach you about true abundance and true beauty. And working together with us at the same time is going to bring you to where you need to be. That she is the reason why I'm feeling the call. It's like the web with no weaver. I feel the call, and so she's here. And because she's here, I feel the call. And shaving my head is going to propel me forward in ways I can never imagine. It's going to open up my crown, open up my connection, and also it's going to be one of the pieces of the puzzle of releasing that grief that I'm contracted to release, apparently. I'm going to cry a lot when I eventually do it. Because it's right now, I think I'm more in the process of working with my protectors. We all have protectors, and it's like our protectors, it's like they're informed by our trauma, and also they avoid us experiencing more trauma. And I've had some people see their protectors within Golden Needle, because with Golden Needle, you really have to work with protectors in order to go deeper. It's like you have to tell that side of you who is afraid of getting too much too soon, who's afraid of the unknown. You have to work with them. You can't say, fuck off, we're going deep. You can do that with plant medicine. With Golden Needle, you have to really work with the psyche here. And I've had people depict their protectors as these tall, dark shadow beings. I've had people with their protectors are depicted as their inner child. And so I'm working with mine because I want to feel safe. I want to take this big dive, and I know it's going to be scary, and that's okay. I want to feel base. I don't want to feel like I'm hurting myself here. I want it to feel like it's for me. And you know, a big thing that I'm realizing that I've been really uncomfortable with since dieta is I walk past a mirror, and depending on how I look that day, I'll either feel anxiety or relief. And with the anxiety, I've been aware of it. It's because, you know, my stomach doesn't look the way I want it to, or my hair, my skin, whatever. The color of the shade under my eyeballs, you know, we can be so nitpicky with ourselves. But I'll feel anxiety because it's like, ooh, I don't look good. Am I unhealthy? Am I sick? Whatever. And I think those little questions are being carried by the shame boat, the unworthy boat of, if I don't look a certain way, then I'm not going to be worthy and wanted and loved. And then the relief is a new one, that it's like I felt I felt it before. It's a familiar feeling, but the realization, the awareness around it is new. And it is that I'll feel relief when I look good, when I fit that standard that I expect of myself to feel. And it made me feel kind of sad because it helped me further understand that I'm not allowing myself to be, and so I'm not going to feel beautiful. I'm going to feel more acceptable or desirable. And it's all propelled by the unworthy train. With that sadness came also hope of, okay, I have the awareness now. Now I can start to move forward. And so I think with this call to shave my head, it comes with this call to love myself no matter what I see in the mirror. This call to feel embodied in my beauty, in my power, without being afraid of what other people will say or think. And I feel like I may have reached the point of what I'm comfortable with sharing here. Since these realizations, since that golden needle, that was about 3 weeks ago, I have felt amazing. I finally feel like I have my feet on the ground, and rather than being dragged, or I have this image of myself in a shallow creek, just like being gently dragged across the rocks, but also being like, ow, ow, ow. It's like now I'm finally walking through the creek and I'm stepping on the stones and I have a direction forward that I want to go in. And like I feel a piece of me has returned, and that piece is stability and a sense of empowerment. That being said, of course, I don't feel perfect every day. It's more that I feel okay with it. I feel like, oh, here's another thing here. There's another portal here. Here's another Easter egg. That's what he talks about in the money code, the money story. Here's another Easter egg of information, of discomfort that is going to enable me to take my power back. And I think the last thing I want to mention, I think I'm going to talk about it more in another podcast, but the relationship with Duma continues. The more realizations of what she can do for me through my voice, I've been able to allow her to step in one more time since then in another, it's like my bathtub portal time. I have been able to receive new gifts from her through this voice, through this activation. It's really cool. I will share details on that eventually though, but that is where I'm at. And I also just want to give you guys a disclaimer that I'm not really sure if I'm going to be doing many more solo casts for the end of this season. I'm feeling myself transition into my personal autumn, winter time. I am definitely going to be taking a big break for the podcast towards the end of the year. I'm aiming to do maybe September, October. I want to release all the interviews that I have so far, and then it's going to be a break for the pod. I'm sure I'll do one last little short recap solo cast to close off the season, but I want you all to be prepared and aware of where I'm at and where I'm feeling with my personal shares here. And I want to thank you all so much for being here. Always, always. I always call you in, and I'm always really grateful for the chance to be heard and to be listened to with such an open heart. As demonic as I can get here. Me and my deities and my angels hopping on that demon train and riding into the abyss of the mystery. And I'm glad you're on this journey with me. I will be feeling your energy the next time I sit behind this mic, sending you my love.